Welcome everyone to the Sentinel's District 3 basketball preview review type video. We're through the Quad A and Triple A first round heading into quarterfinals. And I'm Chris Hopkins. I'm here with basketball beat reporter Jake Adams, and we're just going to kind of break down what we've seen so far in the first few days of the tournament and give a little preview of what we expect to see. Jake, why don't you start? We've had the first round for Quad A and Triple A. What really jumped out to you the most?
I think a couple little things here and there. First off was out of the 28 games that were played in the prelims and the first round matchups, there's only 2 upsets, and I think that's kind of impressive. Both of them came in Quad A. Harrisburg lost last night against Hershey, which was kind of a surprise to me, given that they won the Mid-Penn Commonwealth. They went into the Mid-Penn Conference Tournament Finals. They looked like the best team of late in that division. And yet here they are bounced in the first round. Carlisle and CV have already advanced. The only other upset was Cedar Cliff over Mechanicsburg in the prelim game. Not too much of a surprise there, given that Cedar Cliff was really, really good. And the 20 seed, the only reason they got that was because they slipped up a few weeks before the tournament rankings came out, and they were able to sneak back in right at the last second. So it wasn't too much of a surprise they were able to top Mechanicsburg there. The only other thing outside of that was really just, Bowling Springs had a really good game again. Eric Contreras stepped up big for them, had arguably his most complete game of the season despite 7 turnovers, I believe he had, but he played lights out, 8 of 15 shooting. I think it was 18 points he had, 3 blocks, 3 assists, 15 rebounds. I mean,
Pretty good night.
Yeah, he couldn't have done much better. He attacked the glass, which is something he does when he wants to, but he needs to focus on doing night in, night out. And that's not to rip him, because he's one of the best players in the Mid-Penn, but he's one of those guys that when he's got the motivation, you can't stop him. But when he doesn't feel like playing, you can kind of see it. And I'm thinking this postseason is when you're going to see that side of him that Bowling Springs has wanted to see all year long, and that could be dangerous in AAA.
The playoffs will usually bring that out.
Yeah.
For me, I mean, the thing that really jumped out to me, kind of going off of that, was another individual performance in AAA. It was the game I was at, West Perry at Middletown. An upset by the standings. It was a 10-7. West Perry pulling out the win. Not really the reason it jumped out to me because of the upset. West Perry has beaten Middletown, with them both being the Colonial. Middletown was the Colonial champs, of course, but West Perry got the better of them in the last game. But it was the matter of how West Perry won this game. They got down 19-12 to start the quarter. Jalen Burton-Jones, the leading scorer for Middletown, was just on fire. She hit 3 threes, including one at the buzzer to end. She had 14 alone, and it just looked like Middletown was just going to run away with this game, and they really couldn't miss. And then right after that, right after the break, West Perry went on to score 7 points in a row, and really kind of set the pace to tie the game at 19-19. And from there on, it looked like Jalen Burton-Jones was going to be the MVP in this game, and then it was Megan Smith that really pulled it out. She finished with 28 points, and it was just really impressive to see the way West Perry was able to pull this game out. I covered their game last year when they played Big Spring in the first round. West Perry was the 4 seed and a heavy favorite in that game, and they kind of let her get away and actually lost, and it was a big upset, 13-4. And it looked like they might miss it again, and Megan Smith playing without a District 3 playoff win, 1,000-point score there, not having a playoff win, she made sure they went and got it that night. So, yeah, for me, the biggest thing that jumped out was that West Perry win over Middletown, not because so much for the upset, but the performance that West Perry team put in offensively and defensively. Like I said, they surrendered 19 points in the first quarter, which is a lot for a girls' game, especially too. But from that point on, the final 3 quarters, they gave up 16 total. Yeah. So it was a really nice defensive effort from West Perry. Now, they're moving on. So that's the first round. We have some games starting Friday now. It's the Quad A games for girls, AAA games for boys, and then vice versa from there. Look ahead, I want to ask you to break down the whole bracket, but what's one thing that, if you're a basketball fan out there, you're going to want to see?
I'm kind of going to go look at single A there for a little bit. I think what's interesting right now is West Shore Christian looked like one of the better teams in single A throughout most of the year, but last week they ended up losing their starting point guard, Merritt Rout, to a broken hand in practice. And without him, they're very much one-dimensional with older brother Mitch there in center. And teams in the past, even with Merritt on the court, that have been able to stop Mitch have been able to stop West Shore Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And now that there's not that second threat there, I don't think the Bobcats really have that extra edge, because they have a couple other tertiary scorers, but they're not really, you know, the secondary guys that you need unless they step up this week. They've got New Hope Academy coming up, who finished third in D3 last year and was knocked out in the first round of states. So it's going to be a tough matchup. And like I said, I think without Merritt there, it's going to be a lot tougher for them unless the likes of Jacob Keyports and others can really step up. The Boiling Springs matchup against Bermudian, you got to like that if you're the Bubblers, because you got Eric playing his best game, like I said, possibly all season. Bermudian's coming off a 52-40 win over Lancaster Catholic in the first round. And obviously these two teams don't know each other too well on the court, but they still are familiar with each other enough that it's going to make for an interesting battle. I know that from covering the Bubblers a bunch this year that I think as a 3 seed you can consider them a dark horse in a sense, because the 1 and 2 seeds are obviously favorites. But I think if they can get by this round, you can consider them a dark horse to make a run at the title. So that's what I would watch for in the quarters, is those two games in particular. And then how about over for the girls?
Yeah, for the girls, the one thing that I really highlighted, and I talked to Mechanicsburg coach Clay McAllister afterwards. Mechanicsburg, after they beat Central Dauphin, they found out right away that it was going to be #1 and undefeated Manheim Township. I asked Clay McAllister, you know, Manheim Township obviously not being in the Mid-Penn, they haven't played each other yet, what he knew about Manheim Township. And, you know, he said 2 similar styles. He really didn't know very much, but 2 very similar style teams. And the 2 biggest things is they're 2 bigs. They both have 2 very good forwards on their team. For Manheim Township, it's Alexandra Leslie and Caitlin Van Tash, both averaging over 14 points a game. And they've really been the key to that offensive effort from Manheim Township. And, you know, again, they're no joke. They're the #1 seed in the tournament. They're 26-0. That doesn't happen accidentally. So Mechanicsburg knows they're up for a big battle, but I think where this game goes and how Mechanicsburg goes in the game is going to start in the post. You know, I mentioned Township's 2 forwards, but the 2 big players for Mechanicsburg all year have been Cecily Carley and Hannah Brown, a junior and a forward respectively. Both have played outstanding for Mechanicsburg throughout the year. Both right around 6 foot. Cecily Carl a little bit taller. She can take in the post. Both can take in the post, and the most dangerous part is both can shoot the 3 too. So if those 2 get going, and then they could slow down Leslie and Van Tash from Township, Mechanicsburg can really find their way in that game. It's going to be a tough matchup, but the key is going to start in the post. All right, so now just taking a look at the bracket, we've had a day to digest what we saw over the early week. Just kind of pick out a team from what you saw early on. If you had to pick one team that you thought would really do well, which team has really jumped out to you the most?
I mean, I kind of just mentioned it already, but I think it's really the Bubblers. Eric's, like I keep saying, Eric's played one of the best games of the year in the first round, which is a good sign if you're Boiling Springs and a bad sign if you're everybody else. The inevitability is, though, that as they keep going farther, if they keep going farther, teams are going to key in on him because they're going to see that stat sheet and go, all right, that's the guy to guard. Mm-hmm. But the Bubblers got Austin Pittenger at the point, who's just a junior, but he's one of the best point guards in the entire Mid-Penn. A little bit underrated in some circles, but he can do what he needs to on that offense. And there's times where he takes over a game just by his go-to is his penetration. When he does that and he gets that going, he kicks out to the McHenry brothers, to Eric, to other players out there on the wing. And then that's when the Bubblers start really making their runs. They start sinking a couple threes, getting a couple open looks in the paint. And then when Eric eventually does get stopped or slowed down at the least, it's going to be up to the McHenry brothers. They've got BJ and Garrett, junior and senior, that both can shoot 3 and can guard, and they can drive to the paint when needed. So when Eric finally cools down, it's going to be up to those 2, or at least one of them, to pick up that slack. And they're both very capable of doing it, but this is the time where you've got to show that you're able to step up when needed. And I think, given that they've got 4 weapons like that, that's what's going to drive them to at least the semis. I can very easily see them going to the finals. But if they, don't get past Bermudian, I would consider that a pretty big shock for me. And over on the girls' side, who you got?
For me, it's a team I haven't mentioned yet, but it's Cumberland Valley, the number 2 seed in Quad A. I know it sounds like an easy pick, but they took down New Oxford pretty easily. Now in the quarters, a place where they slipped up last year to CD East. They have number 10 Redline this year, another winnable game for Cumberland Valley. But again, last year they were picked to beat CD East, and they kind of slipped up, and CD East gave them problems all year last year, to be honest. And it took them a while to get their footing right. Obviously, they did make it into the state finals after that. But I think for Cumberland Valley, the biggest thing is going to be to stay focused, because they have a few winnable games coming up here until they reach the finals with Redline, and then it could potentially be Dover in the semifinals, and then from there, there's a slew of teams on the top end of the bracket where I think could be a little bit of a tougher matchup for them, whether it's Wilson or the undefeated Manheim Township or even Mechanicsburg or one of those teams. So I think they have a nice little road leading up to the finals, and they're going to be a team to watch, obviously, making it to the state finals last year, only losing Jackie Falconer. They have the keys there, they have the players who have been in this situation before, and they're poised to make a nice little run. All right, so that's all we have for you. We have basketball picking up after a one-night hiatus tonight. Basketball picks back up Friday and really stretches until the district finals coming up next weekend, and from there, it's states. Thanks for watching.